The kid still isn't back. What do we do? If he's not here, I guess I'm gonna have to step in. Alright, yeah, you step in. But then after that, we gotta find the kid, alright? We gotta start looking for him. Let's see. According to the schedule... retrospective on the Three Stooges. Oh, Three Stooges? I love the Three Stooges. They're my... Oh, Three Stooges? I love Three Stooges. Oh, those guys are comedic geniuses, they are. Yeah, but, 30s man, do you know the full history and evolution of the Three Stooges? Well, once I left 1939, can't say I do. Huh, well, don't worry. I can help fill you in. So let's see, it all goes back to... During the early days of vaudeville, Moses and Samuel Horowitz, or Moe and Shemp Howard, got into the live comedy performance called Howard and Howard in their hometown in Brooklyn. Eventually, Moe met up with a childhood friend who was also part of the comedy circuit, Ted Healy. After seeing one of their live performances, he offered them jobs in 1922. Eventually, one of them discovered Louis Feinberg, or Larry Fine, who had a fiddling act with his at-the-time fiancée. They loved him, so they recruited him as to be a member of the Stooges. And thus began the first era, Ted Healy and his Stooges. They began gradually becoming more and more popular, and eventually cameoing in movies like Soup to Nuts. Fox even offered them a contract, but they broke it off with Healy because he was getting more money than they were. And so what Ted decided to do was try and replace Larry, Moe, and Shemp with 3 other guys and basically rip off the original routine.
Pay me the $50,000 or foreclose this mortgage, you mouse. I won't pay it. Don't get excited, add to the mortgage. Pay me the $50,000 or I'll foreclose. I won't pay it.
Nothing against these guys, but let's face it, the Three Stooges are just better. The Stooges went off on their own, and Healy wanted his originals back. They accepted, but Shemp was officially done with Healy, so he dropped out. Needing a third Stooge, they went back to Brooklyn to pick up Shemp and Moe's little brother, Jerome Horowitz, aka Babe, or Curly Howard. At that time, he was a comedy guest conductor, but once offered the job, he shaved his full head of hair and accepted the job. And so they were officially reunited with Ted Healy, and they now had a contract with MGM, and they were appearing with a bunch of famous movie stars and becoming really big names. But they eventually lost Ted because of 2 reasons. One, Ted was getting more pay than them like before, and Ted had a really bad drinking problem.
Moe landed a 1-film deal at Columbia Pictures, and if the results were favorable, the studio would offer them a long-term contract. So the boys co-starred with Marjorie White in a 20-minute rhyming short subject called Woman Haters. As soon as they finished, they began writing a treatment for another comedy called A Symphony of Punches, which they presented to the studio heads, who were so impressed that the boys were given a 7-year contract with yearly options. A Symphony of Punches was retitled Punch Drunks and became their second short. But more importantly, Howard, Fine, and Howard finally received the billing that would stay with them forever. They became the Three Stooges.
And so, from 1933 all the way to 1946, the Three Stooges of Larry, Moe, and Curly were easily the most successful of all the Three Stooges eras. This was dubbed the Curly era.
There you are, boss. You was called to be a witness, wasn't you?
Certainly.
So was you. What are you butting in for? You're supposed to be a good one, ain't you?
Well, ain't I?
Now, what are you at the stipe in the court for? Get going.
But due to very severe health problems, Curly was hospitalized in 1946. Shemp then had to step in as a temporary replacement, but then it eventually became permanent when, sadly, Curly died in 1947. And so a new generation of Stooges began, the Shemp era. While commonly getting mixed reception, the Shemp era worked for some people, considering that Shemp was the original Stooge before Curly was.
Poor Shemp, he's dead.
Not dead, dead drunk. Come on, kid. Get up now. Take it easy. William.
He shot me.
Larry, quick, get a doctor. Get an ambulance.
No, get a plumber.
But once again, tragedy struck, as 3 years after Curly's death, Shemp died of a heart attack. But still under contract, they had to find yet another person for the act. In entered Joe Besser, and thus began the Joe era. For 3 years, Joe became the official third Stooge. Whereas Curly had more of a childish charm to him and Shemp was kind of a simp, Joe's personality was more whiny. And while whiny characters can be good for comedy, I mean, just look at Daffy Duck for instance, a lot of people felt Joe was like a puzzle piece that didn't fit. It was at this point Columbia Pictures decided to shut down its entire shorts department. They eventually started talking about putting together a live show, but Joe had to drop out due to his wife's health, so they had to get yet another third Stooge. And then we get to the Joe Dorita era. Lasting 8 years, Curly Joe was now the third member. After some live acts, they eventually moved on to full-on motion pictures like Have Rocket Will Travel and The Outlaws Is Comin'. The official end of the Stooges was a planned comedy log tour called Kook's Tour, which went nowhere because Larry retired due to a stroke. There were even plans to have someone step into Larry's role, but the plans kept getting pushed back, and soon enough, each of the Stooges kicked the bucket. Larry, Moe, Joe, and then Curly Joe had all died. I want to pose a question. Why did the Three Stooges last so long? Well, it's because they were timeless. The act involved putting the trio in several different professions and time periods and seeing what kind of jobs they could easily botch, even if it's something that's really easy, usually at their own or someone else's expense. Everyone has their own opinion about each generation, but whether you like the earliest or the last, they will still be timeless. No matter if you're 5 or 50, they have very broad appeal. What made the comedy work was the running gags, their wordplay, and the on-screen chemistry, which of course opinions on that vary from generation to generation. Now if I could list my personal favorites in no particular order, I would say my favorites are Boobs and Arms, Scrambled Brains, What's the Matador, Don't Throw That Knife, A Plumbing We Will Go, 3 Arabian Nuts, 3 Little Pirates, The Tooth Will Out, Yes We Have No Bonanzas, and Tassels in the Air. And that was my Three Stooges retrospective. Hope you guys enjoyed. Wow, kid. Real good job. I learned a lot. Yeah, I'm glad you learned a lot, man. Hey, 30s man, have I ever told you about how Wiz and I first met? No, I don't. Well, it goes like this. I came from a parallel future where the reviewers called for an all-out war between them and the entertainment industry. All internet personalities were forced to fight the system, and it was an all-out bloodbath. I couldn't take living at a point in time where I had to fight some stupid, pointless war just because I wanted to do silly entertainment reviews on the internet. So I decided I would go back in time and end it all. Stop myself from ever becoming an online critic. I would destroy my past self and disappear peacefully. But once I came across my past self, he talked me out of it, saying that with our combined intellect and my know-how about technology, we could prevent a future like that from ever happening. Wiz went back to planning his videos, and I attempted to fix my time travel function on the blaster as a phaser. But after some failed testing, it opened a freak time rip in the space-time continuum and sucked someone from the past and propelled them into the future. And that was me. And of course, last time I tried opening up a portal, that resulted in Pop Culture Wiz becoming aware of this world. Future Wiz, you're back! Yeah, and it looks like we have some company coming from the other side. Surprise! Don't worry about him, alright? He's dead. Yeah, but I hope that Wiz isn't. I mean, we're all roommates. We're like a family. We've spent the last few years living together in one room. After a while, you just grow attached, you know? You don't want to see one guy leave, because that just ruins everything. Hey guys, I'm back. Kid, you're back! We were so worried about you! Where were you? Oh my god, did you guys seriously do the dramatic flashback thing again? Every time I go out to take a break and it gets extended and I get sidetracked, every time you guys have to do that dramatic flashback thing. I mean, we already know. It's not like there's like an audience that we have to do like backstory for.